Hi everyone, in this short video I'm going to attempt to explain to you how to replace and repair the locks that we use on our controlled drugs cabinets and on our medicine cabinets. We do use the same lock on our drugs trolleys, however it's a slightly different process on that, so it's a bit more of an in-depth video I'm going to need to do for that one. So without further ado, here we go. Now, during the video you're going to hear me talking about the different parts that are involved and different tools that we need to do the job basically. So first things first, the lock. So you've got the mortise part. This is the part that does the physical locking, the bolt and the mortise. The Euro profile cylinder, here shown with 3 keys. This is the Yale cylinder that we use. It's a 6-pin Euro profile cylinder. And then the tools that you'll need a 10mm spanner. This one here is a ratchet spanner. Using the ratchet spanner makes it an awful lot quicker. An appropriate sized hex or Allen key, and a Phillips screwdriver. Now the cabinet I'm going to use to explain the process of the lock swap is one of our more popular controlled drugs cabinets. This one is, the product code is the CDC 1010. It's very popular for care homes and quite popular in hospitals as well, to be honest. I'm using this because it's relatively small for me to move about, but it's also big enough for you to be able to see inside. So go inside, open the door, and inside the door you'll see the lock. You'll see there that it's held in place with 2 bolts, 1 top, 1 bottom. You've got the bolt that goes through, nylock nut on the end, and then a hank bush inside. The process of removing this, which I'll explain later, is to remove the nylock nut first using your spanner, then to remove the hank bush. What I will say now, before we get going, is that obviously once you remove bolts top and bottom, the lock does become loose, and it will fall out because there's nothing then holding it in place. So make sure that once you take the last bolt out, you've got good hold of the lock as well, otherwise it'll fall on the floor and could cause more damage to you or the building. One of the new things you'll notice inside our cabinets now as well is this little sticker in the top. This is part of our continued development. It's for our audit process for ISO 9001, which is the quality standard that we now are subject to. So, in order to swap the lock over, which is the same process for one of our controlled drugs and medicine cabinets, you'll need a hex key, a 10mm spanner, and more than likely a Phillips Allen screwdriver. Now, the process to remove the lock is straightforward. All you need to do, keys in the door, lock the lock and take the keys out. Then, using the appropriate size Allen key and your spanner, undo the nut and bolt that holds the lock on. What you'll find is that you've got the bolt, a hank bush and the nylock nut. The easiest thing is to remove the nylock first, and then remove the hank bush and bolt second. Then repeat the same process with the bolt on the bottom. Now just remember, when you take the bolt off the bottom, that the lock will become loose, so don't drop it. And then simply slide the lock out. Now what you'll find is a lot of the time you don't always need to replace both parts. If you do, and you buy it from us, or we send you a warranty replacement out, you'll get something that's pre-assembled like that. So it's simply a case of putting it back together. However, if that's not the case and you just need to replace the cylinder, which is that part, or the mortise, which is the grey part here, it's a very simple process to do. All you need to do is take the lock, put the keys back in, take your Phillips screwdriver and undo that bolt that's on the main face there. take that all the way out, and then with a bit of twisting of the key slightly, the cylinder will come out from the mortise. I was twisting the key because the actual cam part in the cylinder that does the locking sits there in its closed state, so as you can see it's sitting out slightly. What you need to do is turn the key so that that cam is flush, then it'll slide straight out the mortise. So after that, it's a case of reversing the process. So take your new part, either your new cylinder or your new mortise, and slide the cylinder inside the mortise in the opposite way around to you did when you took it out. What I will note at this point is that this bolt needs to be thrown out. If it's away, like that, because we key retain our locks, what you won't be able to do is, if you were to put the cylinder inside the mortise now, it wouldn't work. So it's a simple case of throwing it across. You do that by using the screwdriver and pushing a couple of levers up inside and throwing the mortise across. Taking the cylinder, pop the cylinder back in, take your bolt, put your bolt in like that, tighten it up, and tighten it quite tight so there's no play between the cylinder and the mortise. Now the bolt itself, that bolt there, is threading into that hole in the cylinder. So what you'll find is that it goes straight through and into the cylinder like that. So that's what you're trying to line up when you're lining everything up together. And then to reinstall the lock back into the door, it's a simple reverse process. So take the keys out, make sure lock the lock, take the keys out, and then you're going to put the cylinder through the aperture in the door, and make sure that this grey face here is inside the door behind the return. Then take your bolt and your hank bush, and tighten back up like so. Top and bottom both the same. At this point, it's always advisable to check that the lock's in the right position. First thing to do is just check the door locks at that point. And once you've done that, take your nylocks, finger tight, and then using your spanner, tighten everything back up. And it's as simple as that.